Hello and welcome to another video as we think about the nature of who God is. We've been doing that by following this book, Frameworks Volume 2, God by Paul Blackham. I've had a lot of fun so far. I hope you're enjoying this series. Day 7 is where we're at. Day 7, the roles of the three. The roles of the three. As we're thinking about who God is, we're thinking about the nature of the Trinity. God revealed in the Bible as three persons, but one God. There's a threeness to this one united God. And as we think about the three persons revealed to us in the Bible, what we find is that each person in the Trinity has a distinct role to play. Each of them do and live in many ways differently and distinctly from one another. There are actions, there are activities which are particularly and peculiarly understood as being attributed to the Father, the Son, or the Holy Spirit. And it's not just that somehow the actions are different, but actually these different roles, these different tasks, these different actions that they undertake reveal to us something of the distinction within the very heart of who God is in and of himself. There is a reality to this distinction. It's not just surface level and arbitrary, but there is a connection between how God acts and who he really is. We read this in this book. The different roles that the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit have in action in the Bible reveal the way that the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit relate to each other in eternity. So their actions reveal and relate to how God is in eternity. His actions are connected with who he really truly is. And this is really important because otherwise we'd have all sorts of questions about, well, do we really know God? If he acts in one way, but that's not really related to who he really is, well then how can we say we know anything about God? Jesus' words would fall flat. But he says, he teaches us that as we look at him, as we look at the way he acts, and the things that he does and what he shows us of who the Father is and how he acts, and as he does it all by the power of the Spirit, he shows us that this is the reality, the truth of who God is in and of himself, who God is in reality. So it's really important. His actions, the actions of Jesus, show us something of who Jesus is. The actions of the Father show us something of who the Father really is. And the actions of the Spirit show us something of who the Spirit really is. And this is important again because the Father is not the Son, and the Son is not the Spirit. But there is distinction between each one. Think of these three scenarios, which, and we could think of many others, I'm sure. But could the Father have become human at that first Christmas, at the incarnation, when God takes on flesh? Could it have been that the Father took on flesh? Well, no, because it's the Father who sends the Son. Could the Son have spoken the word of creation back in Genesis chapter 1? No, of course not, because he is the word. He is the one who is spoken, who is when the Father speaks, Jesus is spoken forth into the creating work of the world. Could the Spirit have died on the cross? Well, no, because the Spirit is the one who anoints the Son to do that. You see how in these pivotal moments, these pivotal actions of God in creation and in salvation history, there is distinction. The Father had his particular role to play. The Son had his particular role to play. And so, likewise, the Spirit had a particular role to play. So there are roles between that are different, that are distinct between the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. And over these next few days, as we continue through this book, we're going to be thinking about what is appropriate, particularly appropriate, that the Father does, that the Son does, that the Spirit does, and what does that show us of who God is and what he is like. But before we finish today, it's important for us to remember that even as we talk about the distinction between the three persons, we are still talking about one God. In some ways, it's unhelpful to just speak of God as if there were no distinction within God. But in many ways, it is still helpful for us to remember that when when the Trinity acts, they may be doing different things and having different parts to play, but they are working in complete unity. The Father sends the Son in the power of the Spirit, and so God in this oneness works and acts distinct but utterly and completely united. One of the most well-known verses in the Bible is Deuteronomy 6 chapter 4, when we're thinking about the unity of God. The Lord our God is one. Now that one is not about a solitary, lonely one, but it is about the united, gathered together oneness of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Maybe as we begin this journey of thinking about the roles of God, it'd be good to pause and to think, well, what is it that I would say is particular about the Father? What is it that, from my reading and understanding of the Bible, helps me to see what is distinct about the actions of the Son? What is it that the Spirit really does? Who is He? What do I know of Him particularly? Maybe that would be a good way to spend a bit of time one of these afternoons in the next day or two. I hope that's been useful and helpful as we think about the threeness and the oneness of God.